Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you very much, everyone, for chanting together. Today, actually, for the remainder until we have a lunch, I want to elaborate on the question that came up, that Kathy's question concerning what is Daimoku, what is Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, what is the purpose, what is it, and also even the concept of the sutra that Reverend Kane had spoken on. Okay, so the Daimoku is very important because, how should I say? Sometimes Buddhism needs to become demystified, like everything else in the world. Yeah, there are what we consider mystical is just we don't understand, right? So we call it supernatural or mystical, right? So that means beyond our comprehension. But actually, if we can comprehend it, we can see, we can potentially understand. That is the concept of Buddhism. We can understand. So even though it may have some qualities that are beyond our understanding, we think, or supernatural to appear as such, we as Buddhists need to understand the practical understanding of this, because sometimes making things too mystical means they don't have an explanation to understand, so they use big words, etc. But in reality, our founder Nichiren Shonin, very specifically in his letter, now Kathy is not familiar, but all the founders of the different schools, luckily we have their letters, so therefore we can read of Dogen or Eisai or Nichiren Shonin. And Nichiren Shonin says specifically why in his school, and again, he was not trying to start another school. We are an extension of Tendai. We are a subsect of Tendai. I still believe that today. The reason why is because there is people in Tendai. I just had the opportunity to meet Daiajari Mitsunaga. He did the 1,000-day Kai Hyogo training at Mount Hiei. Does everyone know that one? It's a video. It's called the Marathon Monk, where they circumambulate the globe. They do it on the trail every day, but they walk so much that actually in the course of the time of the 1,000 days, I think they go around the globe twice or once, I can't remember, but they go around the globe. That's how much they walk during the 1,000 days, which comes to about 3 years. And I just saw him a few months ago. And he's basically one of the main leaders of Tendai. So when they think Daiajari means great saint, when you attain this, he's so looked upon with affection that he can enter into the ryokan, the entrance of the emperor's house, with his shoes, which he doesn't have to take off his sandals. That's considered like the highest level of respect. And so he and I were speaking, and we had a conversation concerning Nichiren Shonin. And Nichiren Shonin studied at Mount Hiei. There's a tradition, which also this monk, not only he had completed the 1,000 days, but there's a training that traditionally education at Minobu, at Mount Hiei in Kyoto, was that you stay on the mountain for 12 years. So you don't come off the mountain for 12 years. You study. And then you can become shonin, right? Shonin's character means like upper teacher, upper person. So he also did that. Daiajari Mitsunaga. He didn't come down from the mountain for 12 years, just study and practice. But Nichiren Shonin did as well, which I think it's important to note that even the other founders of the other traditions, they left early. They didn't actually complete their training at Mount Hiei, many of them. Many of them left and then founded their own group. But Nichiren Shonin, I believe, was building upon Master Tiantai in China, Master Dengyo in Japan, and Nichiren Shonin. And one of the things that Mitsunaga said and this is actually thought of in lots of circles in Tendai, is that Nichiren Shonin was the last great master of the Lotus Sutra, of Tendai Buddhism. So you have a master Tiantai Jiri in China, you have a master Dengyo in the Mount Hiei in Japan, and Nichiren Shonin. So it's very important to understand Nichiren Shonin was bringing people, trying to express, which is the actual duty of every great person, every great practitioner who attains some, as Derek was saying, experiential understanding. With that, you have to be able to transmit that to people, to save people, right? So just you think, I want to help people. We take the great vows. I vow to save all sentient beings, however numerous they may be. That's a Buddha's vow. But we also take on that vow. And being a bodhisattva, you have to have something to give to people. That's why we study and practice, so as to be able to have some attainment that we can show people that these things exist, that the potential exists. Very interesting. And actually, that doesn't mean anything special. It just means ordinary. But yet, in the ordinary, becoming ordinary, I think is exceptional. As they say, ordinary is extraordinary, you know? I think it's exceptional because that's all what we want to be. We want to understand our authentic selves, our ordinary selves in that way. And then in that ordinary is that profound nature of Buddha nature, okay? So Nichiren Shonin actually didn't change anything. People think that he changed Tendai, but no, he revealed the core of Tendai. He revealed the core of Tendai. The core of Tendai is Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. That is why the core of Tendai is the Lotus Sutra. Okay. And nowadays, this is one of the issues, of course. Tendai is also the major university of Buddhism. So all the great masters, who many traditions, Dogen, Eisai, Shindan, all of those famous people that established new subsects of Tendai, they studied at Mount Hiei. They studied the Lotus Sutra. Why is the Lotus Sutra essential, right? That's the first question. The Lotus Sutra is essential that if you go, today we chanted chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra. Chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra is the essential part from our tradition, okay? And the reason why is that is called the duration of the life of the Tathagata. Tathagata is the Buddha's name. That is, the Buddha has many epithets, like many names, right? The world knower, the long goer, the stream enterer, etc., etc. You know, Tathagata is interesting because Tata is the actual origin, means origin. Because what does a baby usually say when it goes, Mama, Tata, that kind of idea. That from the origin of all of our origin, where life comes from, is the Buddha. And that in this sutra, he says, many people think that the Buddha was Shakyamuni Buddha who passed away 2,500 years ago. But in actuality, Buddhism, otherwise, if he was the only one to become Buddha, Buddhism died with Shakyamuni, right? But Shakyamuni said, no, we have the essence of the Buddha nature. Therefore, it is immeasurably long and that it is eternal. So therefore, the Buddha reveals that the Buddha nature is an eternal nature. And also, the important thing that he reveals in that is that he reveals his true mind. Because don't you wish to know why the Buddha did all of this? Why the Buddha sat under the tree, and then after he sat under the tree and attained enlightenment, he then got up and started teaching people? Don't you want to know his true motivation? That is what all his disciples are trying to do at all times, asking questions, getting deeper, deeper. And this is revealed in chapter 16 of the Lotus Sutra, where it says, I am always thinking, how shall I cause all living beings to enter into the unsurpassed way and quickly become Buddhas? That is the purpose of Buddhism. I think that's very simple and straightforward as to understanding the mind of the Buddha. Then what Nichiren Shonin did, and Master Tiantai did, beginning with Master Tiantai, he taught the Shomakashikan. He taught the Makashikan, the Concentration and Insight Sutra that we were reading yesterday for the meditation. This is the core of Nichiren Buddhism, or teaching. This is what they call the tradition. The main teaching is the Lotus Sutra. But Nichiren Shonin studied this for 12 years to become a master of it. And in that, he was able to reveal the essential core or nature of the Lotus Sutra, of the Buddha's intent, of the Buddha's purpose, and also what the Buddha wished to transmit us now, 2,500 years after his death, so that we can also equally attain enlightenment, awakening, enter the path, abide within the teaching, and become enlightened. Okay, so he wrote a letter called the Kanjin Honzon Sho. So actually, this is where my name comes from, Kanjin. Kanjin means to see, but not with ordinary eyes. Kanjin is actually the goal, which is why Dharma names are given to people as a kind of goal. And I didn't realize how lofty my goal was. The Kanjin was what we wish to attain. Because if I was to ask you, Kathy, what is the purpose of Buddhism? What is the one purpose, the goal? And how do you show that? What does that mean to kind of narrow it down? Most people cannot answer that. They'll say enlightenment, which is very general. Very general. But then what does that enlightenment mean? What is the accomplishment? What's our goal? Most people aren't able to, verbalize their goal in Buddhism. And actually, within Nichiren Buddhism, what's our goal? Because some people may say samadhi, and again, another general term, without knowing what samadhi means. Then what kind of samadhi? There are many kinds of samadhi or jhana. Many kinds. There are even levels. Little and big. And then ultimate, thorough. That is the idea of kanjin. Kanjin means to see into the true nature of things, to have the eyes of the Buddha. And Nichiren Shonin wrote a letter called the Kanjin Honzon Sho. Kanjin Honzon Sho means a treatise revealing the spiritual contemplation and the most venerable one for the first time. So the spiritual contemplation, concentration, insight, shikan. That's what I was teaching yesterday. And today, Kathy's question was very good. What is the Daimoku? What's the purpose? What is it used for? If we look at any kind of tradition, mantra is the core where it comes from. People don't know what a mantra is. A mantra is an actual point that someone can point to the goal to elaborate upon what we are looking at, because you cannot just wander for enlightenment, right? There has to be the goal. You have to have the purpose. And the one frustrating thing I see in the Buddhism is, again, with all of the spirituality and all of that, sometimes that deludes it, that we just think we're walking in the same direction, but we're not, perhaps, right? That's why the path is as narrow as a razor's edge. We have to constantly be making ourselves aware through our practice and study that we are on the correct path. And then also reaffirming what our goal is. What is it that we're wishing to attain? I don't feel that has been very well explained. Don't you think so? I don't think it has. I don't think it has been shown. It seems as if it's, again, something hidden, something beyond our reach. If so, that seems a little bit, how do you say, both annoying but also disheartening, if it seems way out there. But in this treatise, Nichiren Shonin explains what the true object of veneration is. And when we say that, we have to have an object of focus. Then we have to have a device of practice. The mantra has been used in Vedism and yoga and everything in the sense that it is a string. Mantra means a string, a thread, just as Kanye was saying with the idea of sutra. But that thread is actually something that is utilized as a tool to connect one moment to the next, but also in what is being said, because words have power, right? Words have very big power. Many people don't think that way. But actually, in the concept of yoga, in the concept of practice, all words, not only what we say, but how we say it, or where it's coming from, has a big impact. It can actually heal people. Not in the mystical sense you're healed, but actually what it means, recalibrate ourselves. That's why some people hear the Daimoku. Simply hearing the Daimoku causes them to aspire to enlighten. Because the actual goal, the actual beginning, the first step on the path is the aspiration for enlightenment, to aspire. It's called bodhicitta. That, as we were talking about yesterday, that big aspiring mind, even at the cost of one's life. You may think that you really want enlightenment, you really want that goal, you really want to practice Buddhism, but maybe you're not as serious as you thought. And if so, then maybe you won't be able to attain that goal. You will become side or sleepy, one of the two. Huh? So he says, the 3,000 existences contained in one thought, Ichinen Sanzen, doctrine, was first expounded by Grandmaster Tiantai in his great Concentration and Insight Sutra. That is this. If you read this, you think Ichinen Sanzen is here. 3,000 existences contained in a single thought. It is, but it's not written out. I'll explain for Kathy what that means. 3,000 is infinite, but there's a reason why they use 3,000. But in one moment, all potential minds meet. So no matter where you are, if you are in the hell mind, or in the human mind or animal mind, and those are, of course, connected with certain behaviors like anger or attachment. And we have all of those minds in ourselves. However, what we need to do is that we don't think Buddhas seem so far away, and maybe we can't even comprehend it. How do we know those realms exist? How do you know Buddha exists? How do you know enlightenment exists? How do you know that? How do you know a bodhisattva exists? Have you seen it? Those kinds of things. How do we know? What links us? We know humans exist. We know animals exist. We can maybe even understand some of the other lower realms because we can see them in our face. We can see them in our behavior. But the higher realms, even the realms of just a little bit above, which is still part of the realm of rebirth, which is the heavenly realm, right? I say that as like Hollywood, Hollywood realm. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. We maybe know it exists. I don't know much about Hollywood. I don't know many Hollywood people, but there is something. I can see it with my eyes. But the higher realms above that, the realms of enlightenment, I cannot see so easy. So how do we know they're there? How do we actualize that? And in this idea of Ichinen Sanzen means that in this moment is enlightenment. And again, later we'll go into the concept. So just for now, Kathy, think Ichinen Sanzen, 3,000 existences in a single thought means realization, means attainment of enlightenment in this moment, okay? So Nichiren and Shonin shared that, and that is the basis of Master Tiantai's teaching, okay? And of this, because in one moment when we're sitting here, right, in dhyana or chanting in the state, which is the same thing, it's just moving meditation with a mantra, and the mantra is used to focus. We are actualizing all of our natures. And in that, we're revealing the Buddha. That is what all beings, all practitioners wish to have. It's a very long document, so I'm just going through purpose of it. Maybe one day I'll go through it. But again, it's not. Another important thing is, reading and doing like that. No. That's just this is a supportive element. It's very easy to become a Buddhist scholar and then not have enlightenment. I would prefer enlightenment over being a scholar. And also sometimes that is a very modern way and even Western way of looking at things, even in Japan now. So I'll explain some of the history a little bit later. And Nichiren Shonin says in this question and answer part, he says, as we often look at each other's faces, we notice our facial expression changes from time to time. It is full of delight, anger, or calm sometimes, but other times it changes to greed, ignorance, or flattery. Anger represents hells, greed, hungry ghosts, ignorance, animal or beast realm, flattery, ashura demons or anger, delight, gods, and calm, men or mankind. Thus we see into the continents of people's 6 realms of illusion, from hells to the realms of God. We can see that. That's what Nichiren Shonin is saying. We can see that in ourselves and in others, those 6 realms, which again is the cycle of rebirth. That is the unenlightened realm. We cannot see the 4 realms, the additional 10, the additional 4. So in idea, there's 10 realms called Jukai. We cannot see the 4 realms of the holy ones, the Shavakas, which are the hearers, the Buddha's disciples, the Prataki Buddhas, the private Buddhas, those who have understood and escaped birth and death of other religions. So it doesn't mean just through Buddhism. Through observing nature, they were able to attain some level of enlightenment, but it's not the full enlightenment. Then the realm of the Bodhisattva and the Buddhas, which are hidden from our eyes. Nevertheless, we must be able to see them too if we look for them carefully. So what Nichiren Shonin is saying, we cannot see these realms so easily. How do we know that they're there? That is the idea. Thank you, Kani.
Yeah.
Is the idea of Lotus Sutra. Namu Myoho Renge. It's contained that the Buddha says, this Lotus Sutra is my heart. This is the intent of the Buddha. This is the tool in which you can know or observe those higher realms in yourself, in others, in the world. And that the transmission of that was that all the other previous teachings were kind of hints, insights into that. But that the real thing that he revealed in the Lotus Sutra is the essence of his mind, essence of his heart. And in that is contained in Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Any questions so far? So again, getting into specifics. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. Just listen to what I'm saying as far as observation and apply what you can. Don't say, well, I don't know this term or that. That's okay. You'll never know all the terms. However, maybe I don't know all the terms either. However, the idea is we have to understand what this means in our practice. So when you're looking at it, don't think I have to read more to be a better Buddhist. What it means is that implement this into your practice, however you associate it as such. Any questions so far? Go ahead, Kathy. So this Ichinen Sanzen is called the mutual possession of the 10 realms. So these 10 realms that we just talked about that exist in our minds, they're not imaginary places. This exists within our body. Hell exists within our mind. Buddha exists within our mind. We have all of those natures. Buddha has those natures as well. However, all of the realms contain the other 9 realms. So even the hell realm contains the Buddha realm. And this theory is essential in saying, because some people will say, and this is to counteract perhaps claims of other traditions saying, if you are in hell, you cannot be out of hell, right? There are traditions that say that. Also, in the hell, you have to make your way up gradually to become a Buddha. But in this instantaneous enlightenment, within all of this, and all the other factors that contain into that moment, we have the ability here and now to attain through dhyana, to attain enlightenment, to bring the enlightenment forth, to nourish that Buddha nature. And that how do we see that is that through the Daimoku, just as we see in other people's face, right? The mutual possession of 10 realms doctrine is as difficult to maintain as it is to see fire in a rock and flowers in wood. However, it is not totally impossible because rocks spark when struck together and trees bloom in spring. It is most difficult to believe that the realm of the Buddhas is contained in the realm of men, because it is just like saying that fire is in water or water is in fire. However, it is said that dragon fire comes out of the water and dragon water comes out of fire. This is difficult to believe, but we cannot help but believe in it because of the evidence for this. You have come to believe that each of the 8 realms is contained in the other realm of men. Why can you not believe that the realm of the Buddhas too is contained in it? Ancient Chinese rulers, sages such as Yao and Shun, treated all people equally with compassion, proving the existence of the realm of Buddhas, at least a portion of it within the realm of men. Never despising Bodhisattva, there's a chapter in the Lotus Sutra, described in the 20th chapter, and never despising Bodhisattva of the Lotus Sutra, pressed his hands together in respect and bowed to anyone he met, because whenever the Bodhisattva saw a man or a person, he saw a Buddha. Born to the human world, Prince Siddhartha, young Shakyamuni, became the Buddha. These evidence should be enough to convince you to believe that the realm of the Buddhas exists in the realm of mankind. Because again, this is trying to show substance, trying to reveal something. Because in this idea, when you look at the Namu, as Kane was explaining, Namu means namas. Do you know namas? People, yoga people go around, namaste, namaste, right?
Yeah.
Namas means a respect to something, to uphold something, right? Myoho, Namu, Myoho, is a universal law. The universal law is the law as it is in reality. So gravity, those kinds of things. And those kinds of laws we can measure with science, but we can't necessarily see, right? So there's a kind, they use the word hidden or mystical for myo, but I don't agree with that. It means wonderful, right? The wonderful Dharma. That's why they say the wonderful Dharma. But it means, in the way wonderful, it's beyond wonderful. It's extraordinary. But they use the word mystical. But again, I think that kind of, again, lets people step back and go, okay, it's mystical. What it just means is like the law of gravity and other things. Cannot see, but we can measure, right? We use science. And in this science of meditation, who is measuring that experience? Who is the measure tool of measurement? Does anyone know?
We are?
We are. That's right. That's as Derek was saying. Experiential understanding is the essential part of Buddhism.
Right.
It's not a philosophy, it's not a faith, it's not a belief, any of that. It's an experiential understanding for an explicit purpose. And in that reveals to us that the realms exist in our own mind, because we can see that in dhyana. We can see the realm of the Bodhisattva. These things emerge within ourselves. Not we create, we find, we see, we demystify. But yet, in demystifying it, as I said, ordinary is extraordinary. That Myoho, wonderful Dharma, is extraordinary. And Renge is the lotus flower, as we were talking about the idea that the mud, the lotus grows from the mud, and that this world, go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, I'm saying yes. Sorry.
Okay. In this world, we may think this world is dirty, want to go somewhere else. But in actuality, that's why the Buddha is born here. That's why the Lotus Sutra is taught here. This world is where we learn enlightenment, not another world, because this world is for us. So therefore, in this life, in this moment, we wish to be here to study and practice. It's quite different than if our tradition or our belief wanted to go somewhere else, right? Because that would be saying, okay, this is not good enough. We would be missing the opportunity. Also, the Buddha, he attained enlightenment here. So Kyo, the last character, means the sutra. So as he said, honor be to the most wonderful sutra of the Lotus Flower Sutra. Wonderful Dharma of the Lotus Flower Sutra. That is what it means. So then, as we said, it becomes the activating device from our teacher, from the Shakyamuni Buddha, from the eternal Buddha, given to us. That is why he named it the Lotus Sutra. In that we simply uphold it. What does uphold mean? Uphold means to live. Not just to hold a book or to read it or to go every day and chant. To observe it, to inculcate it, to manifest it. If it's not manifestable, then it's no use to us. The most venerable scene of the transmission of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo from the eternal Buddha to his disciples. So in the Lotus Sutra, there is an episode where the Buddha demonstrates this amazing experience of having the Buddha Shakyamuni and Taho Buddha, who is considered an ancient Buddha, to verify each other. This is really essential. These are like poetic, literary devices in order to say this is important. India is full of them. But this is where this particular spectacular event happens. And actually, it's interesting. This event is so inspirational that it is actually in East Asian art, one of the most used motifs ever in ancient art, especially Buddhist art, is this idea of this, they call it the treasure stupa in the sky. So it says here, the most venerable scene of the transmission, right? Transmission means there is something being transmitted to us. We gain transmission from each other. That's the idea of Sangha. We gain transmission. Hence, Shakyamuni is our teacher. From of this transmission. So in this scene, the Buddha transmits Myoho Renge Kyo to the people, to all of his disciples of all the different realms. The most venerable scene of this transmission of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo from the eternal Buddha to his original disciples. Suspended in the sky above the eternal Buddha Shakyamuni's Saha world, Saha is this world of endurance, is a stupa of treasures, in which Shakyamuni Buddha and Buddha of many treasures sit to the left and right of Myoho Renge Kyo. That's why when we look at the mandala, you can see behind Nichiren Shonin, Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is in the middle, and then on the left and right is Shakyamuni Buddha and Taho. They are waited on by 4 bodhisattvas, such as Jogyo, superior practice, representing the original disciples of the eternal Buddha, called out from underground. 4 more bodhisattvas, including Manjusri and Maitreya, take the lower seats as followers. Other great and minor bodhisattvas, those converted by the Buddha in the theoretical section, and those who came from other lands, resemble numerous people sitting on the ground and looking up at court nobles. Also lined up on the ground are Buddhas in manifestation. Those are the Buddhas that are represented. So when we look at all the other Buddhas, Amida Buddha, Dainichi Nyorai, those are all emanations, they believe, kind of examples of eternal Buddha, who gathered together from all the worlds in the universe to praise the Buddha's preaching, representing provisional Buddhas in their respective lands. So this literary device, this situation, this example, why is it the most used example in East Asian art? Is because in that moment, the Buddha is said to have transmitted his true nature, his true mind. And then when we look, we see all the Buddhas of the other sutras. We see the Buddhas of all the worlds. We see all the realms that we just talked about, the hell realms, the animal realms, all represented. And that's why we use the Gohonzon to represent that moment that we were transmitted that information, that was brought into existence. When the Buddha revealed his true mind, because as we see, why are there so many sutras? Because the Buddha took his time to, those sutras are for individual people. Those are their teachings, their treasures that they then recited to others and they kept. However, the Lotus Sutra was given for everyone. not for individual sutras. That's why sometimes you read a sutra, you'll find some contradiction with other sutras, other teachings of the Buddha. The reason for that is because they were individualized and they were partial teachings to raise the people up so that they could listen to the Buddha, okay, or correct something. But then the Lotus Sutra was given for benefit all people to attain dhyana, to attain enlightenment. And it says the most venerable scene such as this was not revealed anywhere else by Shakyamuni Buddha during the more than 50 years of his preaching in his life. Though he spent 8 years preaching the Lotus Sutra, the scene was limited to the preaching in the sky above Mount Sacred Eagle, recount in 8 chapters. During the 2 millenniums after the death of Shakyamuni Buddha, the ages of the true Dharma and the semblance Dharma, some worshipped Shakyamuni, accompanied by Kashyapa and Ananda, as described in the Hinayana Sutras. Others worshipped him accompanied by such bodhisattvas as Manjusri and Samattabhadra, as he appeared in quasi-Mahayana Sutras. The Nirvana Sutra, or the theoretical section of the Lotus Sutra, many wooden statues and portraits were made of Shakyamuni Buddha, as he preached Hinayana or quasi-Mahayana Sutras. But statues and portraits of the eternal Buddha revealed in the lifespan of the Buddha chapter of the Lotus Sutra were never made. Now, in the beginning of the latter age of degeneration, it is not the same time that such statues and portraits are made for the first time. So what this is saying is Nichiren Shonin, in understanding this, revealed this teaching, showing it, that this is what Master Tiantai was revealing in the Makashikan. Because you have to understand, there were many millennia between these people. This is 500. Then we have Dengyo, 800. Then we have Nichiren Shonin, 13th century, 1200s. During that time, because 2,500 years after the Buddha's time period, the Buddha knew his teachings would change. 1,000 years after he passed away, Buddhism would be almost intact, that people could understand the basic teachings and find enlightenment. Then as it went on, then people would start imitating for the next 1,000 years, pretending they attained what they hadn't. And then after the 2,000 years becomes the age of degeneration or decline, which means that the sutra would decline. And at that time, the Buddha had the Lotus Sutra to be revealed. And then Nichiren Shonin, even though the previous teachers had practiced the Lotus Sutra, Nichiren Shonin was the one who brought the practice to the head by showing Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, even though it had been revealed before, because Master Tiantai reveals it in this book. Grandmaster Dengyo based Tendai on it. But Nichiren Shonin exemplified it by showing that this practice was for anyone, not just monks or nuns, but for anyone. And by revealing it, he gave us the mantra, he gave us the focal point in order to see into the realm of the Buddha, to see into the Buddha's mind. Any question?
I have a question, Sensei.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that was beautiful explanation. Thank you for that. When you were talking about Master Tiantai revealing, I think I would just ask if you would agree, perhaps, that maybe Shakyamuni set in motion a seed that would take all of these great masters and finally Nichiren to complete, because I think when I read the Mohe Shikan, I think the first, I think Clarity and Insight, or the first part, there's a part where Tiantai is describing positive and negative, top and bottom, and somewhere in between is where you find dynamic and static, like the relationship between the two. And it wasn't really deeply kind of eloquated until, because it's a very technical teaching, and I think that when I read that, it came back and connected a lot of what I've read from Nichiren's description of the Daimoku and the turning of the Dharma wheel, and that's in a way. And it sounds like for me, between the Mohe Shikwan and finally Nichiren's time, there might have been some not loose ends, but there might have been some things that needed to be deeply more studied by these masters and finally connected and brought full circle by Nichiren's teachings of the Daimoku. I just wanted to know what you thought of that. If that in a really bad general descriptive way describes kind of what we're talking about a bit in the middle
Well,
path, I guess.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, so a little bit of historical context that people aren't aware of. Okay, so now, if you look at all the sect of Buddhism, especially Japanese Buddhism, they're all based on the founder. Michael, could you mute Kathy, please? They're all based on the founder. So they all reveal their founders, right? So they show, I don't think it is. They reveal the founders that the founders are important. So that's why they read in Dogen's writings, Nichiren Shonen's writing. But actually, they weren't so essential to practice back until I think maybe 15th century or 16th century. Why is that? Because actually the core is a Makashikan, and that all of them understood and practiced it. What Nichiren Shonen did is that as a bodhisattva, he was able to transmit and show to us a core for the time period in which we're in. Each master interpreted these teachings according to the period in which they lived. So they were equal to what Nichiren Shonen is talking about. Sometimes in Nichiren Buddhism, they forget that they feel like a Nichiren Shonen is in the vacuum, like he created everything and that. But actually, Nichiren Shonen is just an exemplary of that, in the sense that he revealed it, because not only having the teaching is important, but having the correct practitioners to reveal it at that time, which we would call a bodhisattva, which would be appropriate to that time, to that place, to that country, right? That is the important part. So all of them are equal as great masters. Of course, we are Nichiren Buddhists, so they say Nichiren Shonen is like that. But actually, Grandmaster Tiantai revealed it as proper for his time period. And Master Dengyo revealed it. But what happens when you reveal something and pass away, these great teachers? It becomes muddled. It becomes changed. So therefore, you always need the other practitioners to help reveal and refocus ourselves. So in the idea of the age of degeneration or decline of the Dharma, Nichiren Shonen refocused ourselves back to the original core, because Buddhism, I feel, had become so, what do you call, like muddled. Because it's a bit confusing as a practitioner, even myself. When I first joined Buddhism, luckily I went to a monastery. It was a Tiantai monastery, a Chinese monastery, and it had a full library as well as a stupa. So as you go through the stupa, as we talk about the 5 periods of Buddhism, each period is represented by the stupa, and the top is the Lotus Sutra. And the library, I got to study all of that and all the books that were available at that time, and even Chinese books. So therefore, I studied, but yet another question came up. Okay, do I have to practice all of these things? Do I have to just do as much as I can, and through these practices, I'm going to get to become an enlightened person? And it seemed way overwhelming, really overwhelming, in that by studying all of that, I became more confused instead of less confused. And so it was interesting, because that's why when I had studied with Komoto Sensei, the value of Nichiren Shonen, the greatness, the wisdom of Nichiren Shonen was that he was able to take that, because it is not, and again, for you to read this is Grandmaster's course. And as you said, it's intentionally vague, because it's not meant to be transmitted through a book. And also it's out of order, because this is a guide, a guide for our practice, not the answer to our practice. This is kind of like, as a practitioner, understanding through the teacher, this can allow me to make sure, because the path, as I said, is as narrow as a razor's edge, that we are on the correct path. But very complicated. If that's Buddhism, I think less than 1% can, maybe even less than that, attain enlightenment now through this. Then the teaching of Tendai. Very complicated, because now Tendai has become muddled with Mikyo. Mikyo is Vedism. And again, there are practitioners of Buddhism that they can attain. But actually, there is some limitation for us, because I am a regular person. I'm not genius. I'm not the magical, special person that I was born, and the day I was born, a star came out and all of that. So I can get those secret teachings. I'm not that person. Like Nichiren Shonin, he just said, I'm the son of a fisherman. I'm the son of a wine salesman from New York. You know, so a wine distributor. It wasn't a sales, a distributor, a maker. But in that, Nichiren Shonin was able to, again, rein Buddhism in, which is why they state that he was the currently last great master of Tendai. That he was able to, again, pinpoint us back to the path by putting us on the correct path with the idea of getting to the heart of the Buddha. Because we're all in this to understand what the Buddha attained, right? So that we can attain it. Don't you think the way that Buddhism is taught many times distracts from that?
Sensei, what is that saying you have about pointing at the moon?
Yeah. Sometimes pointing at the moon, people forget they don't see the moon, or they see it reflected in the water. They look at the finger, etc. But they don't actually see the moon. They become distracted by other things. So we need to see, and even how we interpret the moon in the tradition of Vajrayana, the moon comes into us. We're one with the moon. How to understand the nature of the moon, how to understand the nature of ourselves. It's not in the moon, it's not in the reflection, it's not in the finger, it's in the essence. That essence is revealed by Shakyamuni Buddha. And that essence, again, connect and communicate with us, because you read the whole Makashikan, right? All 3 chapters. Also, you might read all Nichiren Shonin's books. Then you can read the Lotus Sutra. Maybe you read all of those, but
Not even close. Maybe 3 chapters of the first book of the Moshikwan out of general curiosity, and then I had to back out of my element for sure.
Oh no, not out of your element. But if you have the insight, you can understand. You can naturally do that. That's where the Buddha is revealed. Again, we can't imagine what that means. We read in the sutra and think of all these amazing things that the Buddha reveals. But in simple, the Buddha says within ourselves how to awaken that within ourselves, how to nourish that aspect of ourselves. That's what we're doing through meditation. That is where dhyana points us. Dhyana is the compass, the direction that points us there. And I think it's just as important that the technique is available for all beings and not overcomplicated. Because again, it's ridiculous to be a Buddhist scholar. Even though I just getting a master's in that, ridiculous. If I say, oh, that makes me a professional practitioner because I'm a Buddhist scholar. Must be an experiential understanding. That experiential understanding means that our Buddha nature is able to grow, to nourish that. That is what Zen, Tendai, all of the traditions are attending to do, is how to nourish that efficiently. However, religion in itself and even sectarianism creates boundaries, creates walls, whereas Buddhism was supposed to destroy all of those walls. However, the Buddhist institution also built some walls in themselves, which we can now historically see, like even with the Theravada, the Northern Buddhists, right? Now they can actually see how they changed the sutras to make it into masculine-based, monk-based. But before that, which they can have thanks to King Ashoka, they have sutras to see the enlightenment of women, which actually there were more enlightened. There's two lists of enlightened men, enlightened women. There's a longer list for enlightened women than there are men. Also, how they teach the sutras, they could see they removed that specific way of explaining and made it into the masculine, almost into making it into a Brahmin class. So actually, in a way, the Buddha destroyed. They always talk about Buddhism destroyed the caste system, but yet some Buddhism reinvented the caste system with the idea of the enlightened monk, which became the new Brahmin. That interesting? The priesthood became the Brahmins. But that is not the intent of the Buddha. The intent of the Buddha, as it says in the Lotus Sutra, quickly and efficiently allow all beings to attain enlightenment here, immediacy of it, important now, to give you dhyana, to allow you to live in an awakened samadhi. So that's why Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is the most exact way I feel to embody that with practice. Because there has to be something to support that, to direct us. Otherwise, if you can mainly see, there is, people don't know, and that's why Makashikan is an important manual. It talks about it, you can have a disease from meditation. Because if you are a horrible person, and this is actually what the martial arts do. People glorify the martial arts. Again, that's another modern change. Martial arts in Japan had one purpose: to kill efficiently, kill quickly, and that you win. Okay, that's it. But then in the modern age, they have to make it, because swords are outlawed and those kinds of things, make it into a spiritual thing. Okay, or attain enlightenment, become a better person, right? That's when you go to karate dojo, they tell you such a thing. But the purpose is actually killing efficiently and as any way possible. People imbue these things and misconstrue these things and add them. But it's important to remove those fetters, that we can see the actual practice instead of, again, mystifying things. And Nichiren Shonin, I felt, demystified it and revealed enlightenment, that it is something possible here and now, today, in this moment, something we're striving for. Okay, so was that a explanation help you at all?
Oh, immensely, yes. Thank you.
How about Kathy? I think you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
Thank you so much. I'm learning so much. Thank you.
Don't overwhelm. Again,
No, I'm not overwhelmed at all.
keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, and again, this is sometimes the issue of Buddhism, we overwhelm where it's supposed to be simple and attainable. But yet, the institution seems to make it unattainable and far away. And also, again, sometimes even reestablishing another caste system within Buddhism. It's strange. So when we come back, we're going to talk some more about, I think that's good for the Daimoku, unless after lunch you have some question. We're going to go on to some more aspect of the Makashikan, some aspects back into meditation and how that relates with the mantra. And then before we end, we're going to talk and finish on the concept of spiritual maturity, okay? So let us put our hands together in Gasho and end by chanting Odaimoku 3 times. And again, when we say Namu, Namas, Myoho Renge Kyo, we are affirming our mind. We are putting our mind, pointing our mind towards this intention of the Buddha. So when we do that, we are coming in line with the intention of the Buddha. That is how we realize the Buddha nature, right? We manifest that nature within ourselves. So when we chant it, we are affirming that nature, awakening that nature, okay? That's very essential, because just meditation without the teaching, like they were talking about mindfulness, as I was saying with the martial arts, you can become a very mindful killer, very efficient killer. But without the Buddha's teaching, without the Buddha's intent, that's all that it is fulfilling whatever desire we want. And again, going off the path. So therefore, how to stay on the path, how to have this navigational device. This is in the intent of Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. So therefore, we reaffirm it each time we begin and finish. So let us reaffirm at this moment. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge